Hey guys, my name is Slavic, and yes, it is not American. I am a Ukrainian immigrant to the United States, and I have a powerful story to tell you of how good God has been and is in my life, and how He has transformed me from a secular agnostic to a totally committed follower of Jesus Christ. My story is one of many. There are many testimonies of how God changed somebody from atheistic, agnostic, occultic, or crazy backgrounds, and then made them into a child of God. And my story is a little different, but it is similar to many of the testimonies you might have heard about how Jesus pulled people out of darkness and into the light. And before I go into this testimony, I do want to tell you that if you are doubting the existence of God, if you are not sure whether Jesus Christ is who He says He is, or who He says that He claimed to be and what He could do in your life, I pray that this testimony would really encourage you to seek God for real, to open up the Bible, which is His Word, His words, God's words, written on paper through the men that were surrendered to Him and women whom He used. And I pray that you would really experience the Jesus Christ, the real Jesus, the Jesus of the Bible that changed my whole life completely inside out and 180 degrees. And I'm the man I am today because of this man called Jesus Christ. And so I want to begin by telling you that, originally I'm from the country of Ukraine. Everyone's been hearing about Ukraine on the news. You might have, been involved in politics since 2014 and have seen that the country of Ukraine has been in an overturn. It was in the revolution, and since the collapse of the Soviet Union, Ukraine has undergone a lot of reformation, transformation, and now it has been involved in a huge war between Russia. And originally it started out as a civil war in eastern Ukraine. And part of my testimony is, telling you that I actually was in the war zone and did ministry work there a few years back when the war began, and how it affected me and really brought me into the ministry that I am today. So I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I grew up in Odessa, Ukraine, or in American language, Odessa, Ukraine, and it's a port city near the Black Sea. And I grew up to a family that wasn't really Christian. My grandma, she was Orthodox, and she believed in Jesus. She believed in parts of the Bible, but she never really had that personal relationship and encounter with the living God, Jesus Christ. She prayed to icons or prayed through icons to get to Jesus in her room, and she told me Bible stories. So I did learn about Jesus a little bit, about the Bible through Bible stories, but I was too young to understand what was really going on. I didn't understand the cross. I heard about it, but at a young age, I was more concerned with playing games with my friends, or being a menace to society in my neighborhood, because I used to be a pretty pretty bad kid when I was young, and I didn't realize that until God showed me my sinfulness. But so I grew up in a family that wasn't Christian at all. My mom, she was more agnostic, atheist, coming from a Soviet background. So did my grandma, but my grandma kind of synthesized Orthodox Christianity with communism, and she had some affinity towards communism even after the collapse of the Soviet Union. But anyway, so it is only when I actually immigrated to the United States that I heard the gospel, the full understanding of what the Bible says and who Jesus Christ is, why He died on the cross for me, why do I need God in my life. And I actually saw the evidence of God's existence through myself being transformed. That's how I know that I know that I know up to this day and into eternity that God is real, and that there is no argument or philosophical thing that can be said against His existence, because once you encounter the living God, there's never going back. It's not a philosophy, it's not a religion, it's not a religious duty, but it's actually, meeting God, who comes into your spirit, because God communicates to us with His Spirit through our spirit that He gave us, and then being transformed forever. And all of creation shows that God is real. So I actually immigrated to America in early 2001. A few weeks before 9/11 happened. The huge attack that happened on New York City, and the Twin Towers fell, and I didn't know what was going on. I was 9 years old, and I was trying to learn English. So, over the years, my English language has become really good. But, when I came as a little kid, I didn't know any English. And so I went to American school, and I had a friend, Russian, actually, friend, a girl that taught me a little bit of English. But when I was 12 years old, 3 years later, I actually met a man and his son that actually told me about Jesus. I started hanging out with this man's son, David, who I'm actually in ministry with right now at this point in my life. And God used him and his father to really start telling me what the Bible says. They encouraged me to read the Bible, the New Testament. They told me that there's a real God and that he really loves me, that he sent his son, Jesus Christ, to die on the cross for all my sins, that I was a sinner, that I wasn't perfect, and that knowing God was the greatest thing that a young man can do. And over a few month period, when I was 12 to 13 years old, I learned more about the Bible. I asked a lot of questions, and I knew something was drawing me to Jesus, specifically Jesus Christ, not Buddha, Allah, not all those other religions. And I knew there was something different about Jesus Christ and Christianity, as it's biblically practiced, from the Bible, because I was learning these things from the Bible, not from, a pastor from a church, or, Catholic catechisms, but from the Bible. And something compelled me to really, give my life to Jesus Christ. And so one day I prayed to receive Jesus in my life. My friends led me to pray, and then that day on, something happened. Something changed. I cried a little bit even after leaving church when I prayed to receive Jesus into my life, and I could I could sense that something was changing in me. And then a few weeks later, 2 months later, I stopped my old life of sin. Even at 12, 13 years old, I was lying a lot to people. I was using people for my own gain. I just it was natural for me. I also grew up fatherless, really, and even my American father wasn't really, a dad to me. And my mom, she was a single mother. She did the best she could to raise me, but there was no godly influence in my life to really, show me what it means to be a young kid, a young man. But I immediately, almost a few weeks to a few months later, I just didn't want to lie anymore to people, and I didn't want to steal. I used to be a petty thief. I stole a lot of things from people that I should have cared about, and even from my family. And I couldn't do that anymore. I had this conviction in my heart, and it came from my heart. It didn't come from even my friends telling me that it was wrong, but it's just in my heart. I knew that it was wrong, and I just became a totally different person. I started reading the Bible even more than when I did before I became a Christian, and I couldn't stop reading it. I read through the whole Bible within a year or so, and and I just learned so much through it. I really learned the heart of God. And then another thing that happened is I wanted to share what happened with me about what Jesus did in my life, and I started sharing the gospel with my mom, my stepdad. I was sharing the gospel with all my friends in middle school, because I became a young Christian at middle school in America. And with my limited English, I really tried to explain who Jesus was, that he's real, that he can change your life, that he can really make you into a new person, and that God is real. And I actually started really learning how to explain the gospel, through people who had different arguments, and they said, Christianity wasn't true. My mom even said that. She became very antagonistic towards Christianity. So at the same time, almost at the same time that Jesus changed my life, my own mother, she started going towards the New Age route, and towards kind of white magic kind of books and things like that, like Oprah's The Secret, a lot of things that you, the viewer, the listener, might be listening to, and you might feel like you're getting some success out of it, and it tells you how to live your best life now, but in reality, it makes you into your own God, and it's all about success for you. It's not about how you can actually meet Jesus Christ and meet God and really be transformed by Him and love others, love God. It's all about you. And so, my own mother went towards that route, and I went towards Jesus. I just kept pursuing Jesus at a very young age, and over the few years, since I was a teenager, until I entered college, I was really living in a divided household, and I had to really defend my faith, to stand up, to know what I believe in. I knew that I experienced this amazing transformation by Jesus, and I knew I could never go back, no matter what atheistic arguments my mom presented to me, whatever atheistic books that she used to tell me that Christianity is false and the Bible's a lot of contradictions, and Jesus, we don't really know what He really said. And I knew all the answers to all these questions, but in reality, the biggest proof and evidence that Jesus is real is that He is alive to this day, and He has changed millions of people over the world since 1900, 70 years ago, almost 2,000 years ago. He's changed lives, and He's changed my life. And I know that He rose from the dead, and I know that He, through the Holy Spirit, lives inside of me, and He works mightily and energetically through me to show people that love of God that is so real, because God uses other people to show who He is. He can't show Himself and through the universe expose Himself, but everyone would cower in fear and run away from Him, like God when He showed Himself to Moses on Mount Sinai and the Israelites, and they were cowering in fear. But God shows Himself through other people who He uses to share the good news of His love and His kindness to us, because we are all searching for something. And I was searching for something even at a young age. And that's why God used this man, Lynn, and his son, David, to tell me the gospel, people who were really born again Christians, who love Jesus, love the Bible, and love to tell about Him to people. And so through the years, when I grew up in my faith, I really understood, how Christianity is different than other religions. And that it was never about a religion or a philosophy. It was about a relationship, a real vibrant relationship with Jesus Christ. And then I got the opportunity to go to Christian college, and God opened the door for me to go to Christian college, where I finally got the environment that I wanted to grow in my faith even more, where people were really wanting to live for Jesus. Not everybody, of course, but for the most part, people wanted to know Jesus. And so I pursued a few different career paths. I went to political science, and then I went to computer science, to make the long story short. But at the same time, in my heart, since I became a born again Christian, I had this desire to evangelize and to tell people about Jesus. And over the years that I struggled with the calling that God had on my life, God really taught me what it meant to really to be in for Jesus Christ, to not be compromised. And God used the things that I went through, even the persecution that I went through in my own household. He used that to help others to stick strong to their faith. And I also was able to tell my family in Ukraine, because I visited them a few times, as well as when I went to the war zone in 2016, 2017. I told my family about Jesus Christ. I said that He's real. He changed my life. He's different than all the pagan gods of yesteryear of the Ukraine used to worship, the pagan gods of the sun. And so I was able to really share that Jesus is real. He really does change people, and He really did historically rise again from the dead, and His disciples were all transformed, and then the whole Roman Empire was transformed. The whole Europe was transformed because of people sharing the gospel, not perfectly, because the Catholic Church came, and the state combined with Christianity, which wasn't the intention of Christ. It was the individuals that were transformed by Christ that were supposed to, demonstrate the real love and power of God. But through me sharing the real gospel, my family saw that my life had transformed, and they couldn't deny it. And even my father, my biological father, he's an agnostic and leans heavily Buddhist, but he saw that I had a life transformation, and he could see that there was something different. And through my background, being an immigrant to America, God used me in different circumstances to other immigrants. I could relate to them. I could relate to them and, help them understand that, being in a new country is difficult, and, trying to discover your own, people here in this country was difficult too. But I could show them the love of God. I could show them through me being as an immigrant that, there is actually a God who loves them too, and who wants them to join in this adventure with Him, with this Creator. And I was able to witness to, Arabs and Chinese people and Japanese and Russians, other Ukrainians. I shared what God did in my life to encourage them to see that God can do the same thing in their life. Doesn't matter their background, doesn't matter if they were addicted to drugs, alcohol, pornography, sex, whatever they were addicted to. Jesus is the best addiction you can ever have, because the joy that comes from knowing Christ never makes you hungover. It just makes you more excited for life, and you really experience true joy and peace. And so God used my story and to help others to really know Him. And then I got the opportunity after college to go back to Ukraine. And this time I was able to go to eastern Ukraine and in Donetsk, the region that's under complete warfare right now because Russia has fully invaded the country. And I was able to minister to the orphans there. I always felt like I was an orphan too, because when I came to America, I didn't know a soul. My relationship with my, mother was not, really deep. And after I became a Christian, there was really no connection that I could have. And I didn't have a father either. And so I felt like always like a spiritual orphan. But I knew that God loved me because of how He adopted me and saved me from a life of secularism, a life of living for myself, being a liar, a thief, a blasphemer of God, even at a young age. That's how God can even reveal Himself to you at a young age, when you realize how much, of a sinner you were. And I realized that at the age where, of accountability, where I knew that I was accountable for my actions. And so, when I went back to Ukraine, God used me to really minister to the soldiers on the front lines, where there was danger. Every day there was danger when I was there in the summer of 2016 and 2017. And I was able to share the gospel. I ministered to the soldiers, to the orphan kids, to their families. I led vacation Bible schools, did fitness training with the kids, and I was able to show them the love of Christ, and they did see that. They saw the love of God through my life and what God did to me, and I felt like I was going back to my former homeland to show them what Jesus did for me, because I've always had the desire to go back to my former homeland and show them what Jesus did in my life, and God gave me the opportunity. And through that, I was able to develop relationships, that even to this day I have, even through the Christian colleges that I went to, and the people that were involved in Ukrainian Russian ministry. And so God used that to really build my faith. And again, once again, to see that no matter what danger I'm in, no matter what people are doing, speaking bad about my faith, that God is my rock and my salvation. And my faith was just strengthened through all the persecution or the physically dangerous activities that I was involved in as a missionary and as a Christian. And so God has now answered the desire of my heart. Since I was a little kid, since I gave my life to Christ, I knew that God called me to be an evangelist. I always thought that was the calling that I had, because I had such a passion for it. And even though through the years it waned on and off, because I had compromised in my life, I had other sin issues that I struggled with. I wasn't a perfect Christian, but God had His hand on my life. And even to this day, I see how much God has been faithful to me in my life, that I'm in full-time ministry, and I see how much more God really loves me than I've ever seen before, because not only has He showed me His love and provided for me and given me the desires of my heart, but He also has freed me from sins that I didn't even know I realized that I had, and compromises that I made with the world system. Because even as Christians, we can make easily sacrifices and compromises for the world, for money, for success, for the idols of sex and sensuality. We can make those compromises because we don't realize how costly it is to the Christian walk. And so God has to constantly prune us and cleanse us. And that's what God did in my life. up to this point where I am now, God has cleansed me and He has purified me from a lot of the things that have hamstrung a lot of believers. And a lot of people that are in ministry, God has cleansed me from these compromises so that I could be a useful tool in His kingdom, and so that I could use my testimony to bless others. And so, moving on a little further in my testimony, a few years ago, God again answered the call from my life that He had, and He put me into full-time ministry, and I work for an organization now called Kingdom Enterprises, and I share the gospel full-time as a missionary and a campus evangelist at the University of Arizona. That is my main kind of missionary activity that I do, that I lead with a ministry team, and we share the gospel with students who have a lot of questions, whether they're about philosophy, how does Christianity write, abortion, homosexuality, all the modern things of this day, transgenderism. And God has, used my story and the things that I've gone through to really to affect people's understanding, to help them see that Christianity is not a religion, but that it is a vibrant relationship with the living God who is real, and He has revealed Himself by placing Himself into the world, into our own, the garbage of this world system, into our own pain and the burdens that we carry through Jesus Christ. And He lived a short physical life here on earth, but now He lives within everybody that wants Him in their own hearts. He lives within their hearts and their spirits if they invite Him in. And God uses my testimony to help others. And so, because God placed me in the ministry, now I am the most joyful and happiest Ukrainian, a missionary that I could be. And it's amazing because my story is very unique, because God brought me from another country to hear the gospel, and He did two miracles in my life. He brought me to one of the most freest nations on earth in terms of religion, because America was founded upon freedom of religion and freedom to pursue opportunity. So He brought me to this land, and he opened my eyes to my sin, and I repented of my sin and put my faith in Christ, and He transformed me. And those are the two miracles that happened. And He put me into ministry, and where I can actually share the gospel with hundreds of thousands of people. And I am really satisfied and fulfilled, because God has used my life, and He's given me a mission and a vision to see people meet Jesus Christ and encounter Him. And especially the immigrants, from Ukraine and Russia and Eastern Europe, and immigrants from everywhere else. I want to see them come to Christ, and God has put me in these people's lives so that they could see that Jesus is real, and He has, placed me in such a time as this. Just like Esther, the book of Esther talks about, she was put in a time where she was needed to save the Jewish people from persecution. And I know that God has put me into America for a time where America is really fallen from Christ. It's fallen from its foundations, and the only hope for America is Jesus Christ. It's not politics. It's not more programs in church. It's people having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. As individuals, as cities, as states, as federal organizations. It's the only hope for America and for Ukraine. And I know that God used my story for me being in the war zone of Ukraine, where I experienced the horrors of war, and seeing soldiers die in the front lines, and knowing who they were the day before, meeting with them, and then knowing that they died the day after through mortar fire. I know that God had me placed there for a reason, and used that, and still use it to this day. And I hope that if you are Russian Ukrainian, that you see this, that you have hope, that even if you're stuck in Ukraine, in both of our homelands, where I was born in and lived there, if you're stuck there, know that God has still a plan for the country. He still has a plan for the people of Ukraine and Russia too, because this is the devil's world. It's not really the politics. It's what the devil is doing, and using other nations against each other, and corruption of both nations, and corruption of the whole world system to make everyone kill each other. So I want you to know that there is hope, that there is a God who loves you, that even through all this warfare and carnage, that God is calling you to Himself, my fellow Ukrainian and my fellow Russian. And if you're, are, an American, and anybody else that's listening to this, I really implore you to find out why you were here, why you're put here on earth, and understand that there is a real God, that He does have a plan and purpose for your life. Just like me, He changed me from a totally godless individual to someone who's in love with Jesus Christ, and He wants to tell everybody about Him, that it's not a relationship, it's not a religion, that it is a relationship, a living, active, daily relationship with the living God. And I pray that, again, like I said in the beginning, I pray that this testimony really blesses you, whoever you are. I pray that God uses it to really show you that time is short. You don't know how long you have on this earth. I was 12 years old, 13 years old when I gave my life to Christ, and I'm 31 years old at the time of this filming of this video. And I can tell you that time moves so fast the older you get, and you might not even have a chance to reach the milestones of a certain year that you want, because you never know when life ends. You never know when eternity strikes you, and eternity is parallel to you and I. And I knew that from a young age, that I didn't want to waste my life and compromise. That I knew that God had a calling on my life, and I pray that God reveals to you your calling, that you become a child of God, and that you give up all the fake treasures, the fake gold of this world, and put your finger and your hand into the hands of Jesus Christ, and that He gives you the true treasures, which is to love Him and to love others through His love. There's no love like the love that I've experienced through Jesus Christ. So really make sure that you are right with God, and that you don't waste a single moment anymore, because the world's getting darker. This world's getting more wicked. It seems like things are going to explode very soon in our world. And if you're listening or watching this, I want you to know that God has a purpose for your life, but you have to surrender to Him. You have to trust Him with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, because He knows you better than you know yourself, and He knows your wicked sin better than you know your own wicked sin. But He also loves you so much that He died for you on the cross. That's the greatest love a man or woman can show, is to die for somebody else. And this was God who died. It's a mystery, but God died in physical human form for you, to show you how much He loves you. So I pray that you are encouraged by this testimony, and you really ponder upon what I said, and how God changed my life, and how He brought me from darkness into light, how He brought me from difficulty into joy. And I pray that God really impacts your heart and touches you and brings you into a relationship with Jesus Christ. And if you enjoyed this testimony, please share it. Please share it to anybody that needs to hear this message of transformation, and a testimony of somebody, and a Ukrainian, who encountered Jesus Christ as his own personal Lord and Savior. So thank you very much for listening and watching to this testimony video, and may God richly bless you.